Many who live have escaped their end, and some who perish were never meant to. Can she undo the threads once cut? Fate is not swift to cast judgment, nor cruel in its weaving. But death is but a thread in the pattern, one we all must follow. Even the wise do not see the full design. But then, the loom stills. The bleak curtain of the world's shadow lifts, and for a moment, a new strand shines through the darkness. They say there was once a woman who reached too far, not for power, at least not in the way others did. Her hunger was quieter, stranger. She sought to know what should be unknowable, the truth that lies behind the final breath, the meaning in the pain before the end. In a time when gods walk more freely, she gathered ancient knowledge, defied taboo, and stitched together a ritual not meant for mortal minds. Something went wrong, or perhaps too right. What emerged from that ritual was not a goddess, nor a corpse, but something in between. Her form dissolved into sensation, thought, memory, fragmented and raw. Her name, once spoken with reverence or fear, was pulled from the weave of the world by those who had called her kin. Corellon wept in fury. Lolth turned her back in disgust. To them, she was a blight, a rupture in the elegance of elven divinity. So they erased her. They tore her from song and scripture, from mind and myth of the elves. Not even her shadow remained in the world of light. But shadows do not die so easily. Somewhere beyond the mortal lands, beyond even the dominion of most gods, there lies the Shadowfell, a place where the world forgets itself. A realm of half-light and stagnant air, where joy becomes dust and time trickles like blood from a wound. Into that plane she fell, or perhaps was drawn. No one saw it happen, no one marked the moment, but over time, the Shadowfell changed. It grew colder, heavier. Whispers began to echo through its fog. Travelers spoke of a presence, a feeling of being watched by something that had no eyes. And in the deep places, where light refuses to linger, there were rumors of a queen who wore no crown, who collected not gold or jewels, but memories. Broken ones, painful ones. The things mortals left behind, or buried so deep they forgot they existed. This entity was not born, she was assembled, stitched from the threads of forgotten grief, sealed in a skin of shadow. Her palace rose not from stone, but from strands of unraveling identity. Her throne was made of dying thoughts. Around her, mementos hovered. A child's first scream, a widow's trembling hand, the scent of a battlefield where no names were remembered. She did not speak often. When she did, it was as though the air itself cracked. The Raven Queen. That's what they call her now. But she did not choose the name. It was given by those who feared her, those who glimpsed her in the instant before death and felt their soul recoil. She watches not with eyes, but with awareness, pulling forth buried fears, unraveling lies that mortals tell themselves at the edge of the grave. Some say she is mad, that her endless collecting is the compulsion of a shattered mind, desperate not to forget itself. They say she hoards memories like a drowning woman clutches driftwood, terrified that if she ever lets go, if she ever stops, the last trace of who she was will disappear forever. Others believe she has purpose, that her agony is a crucible, that she purifies the dead by forcing them to see themselves as they truly are, unmasked and unmoored. Only then, they say, can a soul pass on free of illusion. No one knows which is true. Perhaps both are. Only the Lady of Pain is said to know the Raven Queen's true nature, and she does not speak. The Raven Queen herself is silent more often than not, drifting through her domain like smoke, trailing the faint scent of loss and winter. She does not seek worship. She does not call followers, and yet she is not alone. The desperate find her, the broken, those whose grief has become gravity. They come seeking answers or release or simply to be seen. Some return, changed. Others are never seen again, perhaps unraveled entirely, their truth swallowed into the Queen's unknowable whole. In the end, she is the Shadowfell's heart, its mind, its hunger. And as long as there is sorrow in the world, as long as someone dies with a secret clenched in their soul, she will remain, remembering for those who cannot, and waiting for those who must. The Raven Queen is a being of dark mystery. Accomplished wizards talk about her in hushed tones, and with no small amount of fear, for even they can't say what power she wields in her realms, too subtle for mortal minds to sense. Rumours abound as to her current form, most coming from claims made by lunatics who have described an array of disturbing images, a terrible shadow that clawed at their innermost thoughts, a pale and regal elf who exploded into an untold number of ravens, a shambling tangle of slick roots and sticks that overwhelmed them with dread, or an unknown presence that pulled them screaming blindly into the gloom. Despite all attempts to demystify her, the Raven Queen has remained enigmatic and aloof, immersed in a sea of questions. She rules from her raven throne within the fortress of memories, a maze-like castle deep within the bleakness of the Shadowfell. From there, she sends out her ravens to find interesting souls she can pluck from various planes of existence. Once they are in the Shadowfell, she watches as these souls attempt to unravel the mystery of their being, and ultimately go mad in the process. For those who seek to unravel the enigma of the Raven Queen, the story of her origin comes from the ancient history of the elves. It is said that she was once an elf queen, whose people loved her more than they loved the gods. Her true name has been lost to time. But, from the fragments that have been found of her history, it was she who, when Corellon and Lolth were locked in conflict, tried to use the souls and magic of her people to elevate herself to godly status, thus salvaging the fractured pantheon of the elves. Afterward, the legends suggest she would attempt to implore Corellon and Lolth to come to their senses. But the information in these fragments was woefully incomplete, and the Queen's true motives were never fully understood. The Shadakai watched as once she'd became the Raven Queen, she fell deeper and deeper into a divine madness. Her pain and turmoil over the betrayal of her wizards, the destruction of her kingdom, and her failure at attaining godhood, all attributed to her descent into an unquenchable sorrow. At the same time, the energy of the corrupted ritual was still transforming her, breaking down her form from a physical one into an entity composed of symbols, images, and perceptions. To keep herself from dissipating entirely into nothingness, the Queen used the last vestiges of her personal power to pull dead memories from the Shadowfell about her, creating a cloak of identities that sustained her. Over centuries, those dark memories accumulated and coalesced to give shape to the entity now known as the Raven Queen. Mortals that enter the Raven Queen's realm are almost instantly confronted with a glimpse into their own internal landscape. Because she is fascinated with emotion, the Raven Queen worms into the unconscious minds and memories of her visitors, bringing forth visions from the deepest reaches of their psyches. Some of these visitors are the unwitting souls of departed people who have been pulled into the Raven Queen's clutches. Others are astral travelers who are caught and trapped within the Shadowfell by her magic. But a rare few come of their own volition, seeking knowledge of freedom from a dark past. One evil mind fixated on wresting away the Raven Queen's power is the Lich Vecna. Vecna has long coveted her ability over knowledge and souls. To steal souls would give him the ability to amass an army of the dead, large enough to conquer the Shadowfell and turn it into his own kingdom of death. There, he would rule from the Fortress of Memories, and through the Raven Queen's power have access to all the lost knowledge stored within the souls she has trapped over the millennia. Many have talked of visitations of the Raven Queen, who enlisted during their time in the afterlife to complete a task or acquire items of great value. The Raven Queen's reason for communing in this way is a matter of some dispute from scribes. Some suggest that she is using people as pawns in an inscrutable game, the rules of which are known only to her and the Lady of Pain. Others suggest that she is balancing the multiverse by having mortals complete various tasks, and some say that it is in these moments of obeisance to her that the Raven Queen recalls a fragment of her former self. The elder walked like a scar through the mist, tall, lean, his skin pale as moonlight through storm clouds, his hair bound in threads of silver and iron. Master Saelrith wore memory like a cloak. The lines on his face marked not age, but burdens carried from forgotten centuries. His eyes, once human, now held the matte sheen of slate, watching the world as if waiting for it to end again. Beside him, Veltis, slighter of frame. His movements were quieter, less practiced, and his skin bore the faint warmth of someone not yet fully surrendered to the Shadowfell. His eyes, sharp but wide, lingered too long on beauty, and his breath still carried the weight of wonder. Where Saelrith glided with purpose, Veltis walked with questions. They were Shadowkai, servants of the Raven Queen. One, a vessel long shaped by grief. The other, still soft at the edges. You must not look too long, Veltis. Why, Master? Because some reflections draw shadows on the fringes of reality, casting shadows between this world and the material. The two figures moved like whispers through the dim veil of the Shadowfell, their cloaks little more than deeper folds in the darkness. Even the wind here was mournful, a slow, dragging breath that stirred the ever-present mist into long, reaching fingers. Master Saelrith strode with the slow assurance of one who had walked the fold of dusk for centuries. Veltis, his apprentice, was more hesitant, younger, still half remembered by life. Before them rose the jagged silhouette of a tower, hunched like a broken finger among the black crags. Green mist clung to its fractured flanks, catching in ghostlight flares across windows that no longer had glass. It was not a real place, not in the way the waking world measures such things. This was a reflection, a memory formulated and grey, a shade of a tower that once stood in Netheril perhaps, before it collapsed into time and ruin. They had come at the Raven's behest. It's beautiful, Veltis whispered. Then your vision is not yet sharp, Saelrith replied. Beauty belongs to the living. What you see is grief shaped into stone. The tower bore no name anymore. Whatever it had been called when mages soared through Netherese skies had long been stripped away by sorrow and irregularity. Now, it only wept, slowly, endlessly, the way things did in the Shadowfell. As they climbed the rocky path toward it, the green mist thickened. Shapes flickered in it, half-formed memories. Veltis saw children playing in a sunlit courtyard that was never truly there. Then a wizard standing atop the tower with a circlet of fire upon his brow, whispering a name he had forgotten before he fell. They passed beneath a broken archway of blackened stone, crusted with ice that never thawed. The shadows deepened, pressing close. This place, Veltis hesitated, touching the stone. It's not one of ours. Not originally, but it was claimed. All grief is hers, in time. Saelrith stopped before a door that did not fully exist. It shimmered in and out of view, sometimes a Netherese archway of silver and spell-wrought iron, sometimes a hollow cavity, sometimes a gaping maw of shadow. The apprentice reached for it. "Do not touch it!" the master barked, sharper than before. Veltis recoiled. "Why? What lies beyond?" Selrith's voice was quiet again. The remnants of what once defied the Raven Queen, the echo of pride that thought itself eternal. "We are here only to collect." From the folds of his cloak, Selrith produced a vessel, a small urn shaped like an eye. It pulsed faintly, feeding on the sorrow in the air. The Raven Queen did not always demand objects of power. Sometimes she hungered for simpler things. The scent of a long-lost garden, the laugh of a widow, the dying hope of a tower that no longer stood. They walked the perimeter in silence, gathering what the ravens had marked. A cracked sigil stone, still etched with magic longing for a master long dead. A memory in the form of frost on a sill, where a young mage once watched their world burn. A whispered name that Velthis could not repeat without tasting blood. The tower itself wept quietly into the mists. Not water, but time, perhaps. Memory. "Why does she care for these ruins?" Velthis finally asked. "Because this is what remains when greatness falls, when ambition shatters. These are the truths mortals hide from themselves. And we serve that truth." "No," Selrith said, as a raven circled above. "We serve the one who remembers it." High above, in the jagged spire of the Fortress of Memories, the Raven Queen would feel the urn's return. Perhaps she would gaze into it and see the fall of Netheril all over again. See the same sorrow etched through Letherna's frozen trees, through Velthis's downcast eyes. This place, its secrets we must preserve. There is one who claws at the edges of her realm, a rotting god of undeath who does not forget, who will not let go. Orcus, the demon prince of the undead, sees in her dominion a prize worth tearing from the bone of the world. He sends his cultists to rot the borders of her realm, to steal the secrets she buries beneath stone. And more than any treasure, more than dominion itself, he seeks the one truth she has hidden, even from herself. Her name. We must preserve that secret within memory, within fragments, for names are power, and hers is a wound carved into the fabric of the cosmos, sealed, locked, and buried deep. They turned to leave. Behind them, the tower was fading. The memory had given all it could. In time, it too would vanish, subsumed by the fold of shadow. But as they descended the rocks, Selrith paused. "You asked me earlier what lies beyond that door. I will tell you now." Velthis looked up, surprised. A single man, still dreaming of flying, and then they walked on into the mist and were gone. The Raven Queen is trapped by her fascination with the past. She sits in her fortress amidst all the memories of the world, looking at the ones that please her most as though they were glittering jewels. And so she waits, beneath a sky that never dawns. No bells toll in her honor. No hymns reach her ears. Only the slow, steady rhythm of memory, fading, fracturing, falling, echoing through the halls of shadow she calls home. Mortals speak of her in hushed tones, afraid their words might draw her gaze. Yet in the end, all paths bend toward her. All names are forgotten, all faces blur, and all truths bleed out beneath her touch. For when the light fails, when time frays, and the last breath is drawn with trembling lips, it is not judgment that greets the soul. It is the Raven Queen, for she remembers everything.